Hey everyone, Warwick's here. So we're going to cut off the Druid guides a little bit, just a quick update on those. I'm going to be doing Resto here soon. Balance, I think I'm going to wait until after 10.0.5 to do a guide on, because there's so much changing with Balance Druid between now and that patch, which I'm thinking might be coming sometime in the next 4 or 5 weeks. So I may hold off on doing a Balance Druid guide until we get kind of their tree reworked and kind of the way the spec functions in Eclipse reworked a little bit. So I'm going to hold off on that. So in the meantime, I wanted to take a moment and do a guide on another spec that I've been playing quite a bit of, and that is, of course, Survival Hunter. You see my wonderful Dwarf Survival Hunter here. So Survival is a spec that, now that it's lost its kind of 9.2/3 set bonus that really empowered Wildfire Bomb to be an extreme part of its damage, its overall damage profile has really fallen off. And if you look at any of the logs posted on Warcraft logs from the raid standpoint, it's bottom of the barrel and single target, where it's kind of lived outside of that 2 patches in Shadowlands. And in Mythic Plus, it doesn't really do anything special to warrant bringing, especially when Marksman is so powerful right now from a damage profile standpoint. Overall, the spec is an interesting playstyle, but it has a lot of flaws that make it so that it's back down to being very, very, very low play count in terms of the number of logs that you're seeing posted through raid, and the number of people that are playing survival in Mythic Plus has dropped off precipitously, especially, like I said, since marksmanship is so powerful. Like all hunters, survival is a kind of a glass cannon as well, and thus also has some problems there with the has some problems kind of living as damage profiles get more and more dangerous. That said, this video we're going to go over everything that we need to get you started with a survival hunter if you're interested in trying out the spec, either as kind of an off spec or just for something to fun play on an alt where you may not necessarily do a bunch of serious content with it, but you're gonna mess around with it, have some fun, maybe play with it. Or maybe you're considering, hey, I want to take this spec that no one's really playing and try to do the best that I can with it. If you're like me and you kind of have like underdogitis, where you like to take specs that are underperforming or have poor community perception and play them and try to show people that they're actually not that bad, it's just a tuning problem, which I think survival kind of is. So in this video, we're going to talk about your general talent builds, what the rotation will be for each of those talent builds, because there are a single target and an AoE build, so we'll talk about both. We're also going to talk about your stats, your consumables, your things like your enchants, your potions, things of that nature, and just kind of some general tips and tricks that I've picked up kind of playing the spec a little bit over time. If you're looking for things like a gear list, I just recommend going and simming yourself using a Droptimizer sim for the dungeons or for the raid to see what's going to be the biggest upgrades for you. Or you can do things like Wowhead Guide, for example, has like a general bits gear list. There's no way to get truly all best in slot like there was in the classic days of WoW, because the lists that you're getting are going to be changing basically every time you get a new piece. All of a sudden, a piece that maybe was haste crit may not be as valuable because you have high haste, high crit, and like a haste verse piece all of a sudden might be more valuable, stuff like that. But we'll get into all of that and we'll kind of talk it over here to kind of go over everything that we've got going on. So we're going to go ahead and start with the talent builds. And we're going to start with the raid build first. And this is the kind of the raid build that I've been running. It's kind of recommended and been being used by most survival hunters that are playing this spec right now when it comes to single target. I'm not going to go over talent by talent on this build, but basically the big things to note are that for the spec tree, you're running Rejuvenating Wind, Pathfinding, Survival of the Fittest, and you run the Serpent Sting latent poison injector is what I'm always going to call it, along with Death Chakram. And basically out of the spec tree, what you're doing is you're trying to maximize your defenses as much as humanly possible. With Survival of the Fittest, Exhilaration, or Nature's Endurance giving you extra mode, you're getting Natural Mending, Rejuvenating Wind, so you try to max out your defenses as much as humanly possible, while also taking utility that is going to be valuable at all times throughout the raid, regardless of situation. On this side of things, the Spectre side, this build focuses very heavily on Mongoose Bite. So Mongoose Bite is actually back. It kind of fell out of favor pretty much all throughout Shadowlands in favor of Tip of the Spear and the kind of version 2 of the talent system. In this talent system, it's back. It is quite powerful. Now, base, it doesn't do as much damage as Raptor Strike. You can see from me, Raptor Strike is doing about 27,750 versus 25,000. So about a 22, about 2,700 damage or so difference baseline. However, you get the benefit of Mongoose Fury, and Tip of the Spear works for Mongoose Bite as well. So you're just getting these stacking damage amps that make Mongoose Bite much more powerful than Raptor Strike in the short term. So we're back to playing with Mongoose Bite and the Mongoose Fury windows. And what this spec does is this spec basically takes everything that can buff Mongoose Bite and maxes it out. Now, some talents to take note of here, things you are grabbing, of course, Intense Focus to help you with your focus regen, so you can do more Mongoose Bites. You're also still taking some things that are going to help with Viper's Venom, with Mongoose Bite applying Serpent Sting, which is going to basically translate into Latent Poison Injection being useful here as kind of a passive damage proc. You're not really going to use Serpent Sting as an active ability, really, at any time. But you talent it because you need the poison injectors. You're still taking Wildfire Infusion, Wildfire Bomb, then second charge, more damage, stuff like that. The biggest talents to kind of pay attention to, obviously, number one, Mongoose Bite. Flanking Strike is in here now because it's a good source of focus regen, and it does pretty strong damage in single target. And then kind of down this part of the tree right here with Sweeping Spear giving you 10% Mongoose Bite damage, Kill Command giving you kill command, or Killer Companion giving you kill command damage, and then Spearhead and Deadly Duo. Now, real quick, let's talk about Spearhead and Deadly Duo, because Spearhead is the main cooldown for this. As you can see, I don't take Coordinated Assault. Coordinated Assault got kind of soft reworked into this expansion to where it's much more AoE focused. As you can see, based off the tooltip here, you're talking about Wildfire Bomb and Kill Shot, where Spearhead is focusing a lot more on Raptor Strike, or in this case, Mongoose Bite and Kill Command. So no more single target focus. This empowers your single target spells, so therefore it's going to be your better single target cooldown. So Spearhead, basically what it does is it for a 12-second window, you're going to get 25% increased pet damage, 35% increased Mongoose Bite damage, and a 20% increased chance for kill command to reset. On top of this, it's 15, so you're talking 25 base plus 15, that's 40, plus another 20% here, so you're talking about a 60% chance for kill command to reset. So you're very much going to be kind of spamming during the Spearhead window, Mongoose Bite, and then using Kill Command to get your focus back, Mongoose Bite, Kill Command to get your focus back. And in combination of Deadly Duo, basically you are using your Mongoose Bite to empower your next Kill Command, and of course stacking your reset chance, you can guarantee a Kill Command reset. And then when you get those resets, you extend your Spearhead duration by 1.5 seconds. So the goal of Spearhead is to basically see how long can you get your Spearhead to last. I've seen some survival hunters in logs that have gotten them as long as double the duration in 24 seconds. And I'm sure things like Power Infusion and Heroism play a part in that with haste levels that we mostly have at this point. But you know, your goal basically is to spam a lot of Mongoose Bite, a lot of Kill Command, and extend this window as long as humanly possible for yourself. All right. So what does this build look like in actual play? So let me come over here to the single target training dummy. Now, I'm not going to use any of my trinkets or anything like that. We're basically just going to get into kind of a general opener approach. So the opener is actually really straightforward. You harpoon and immediately Wildfire Bomb. All right, that's kind of the main part of the opener. Now, in order to set up to using Spearhead, you're going to, I'm going to do this a little bit slow, so it's not going to be optimized perfectly. We're going to harpoon in because of terms of engagement. That's going to do damage. So we're doing that. Wildfire Bomb, Death Chakram, Spearhead, and then we start just spamming Mongoose Bite. Now, Mongoose Bite, you're not really focusing on your... you're not focusing on the kind of Mongoose Fury window as much as humanly possible. So you're just using it as much as humanly possible. Now here we get a red bomb that guarantees the kill command resets. So you would use that as quickly as you can. But that's kind of all you're really doing. So you're not really focusing on anything else. You don't worry about, you know, Wildfire Bomb. You kind of use one to keep it on charge on cooldown. During Spearhead, you're using Kill Command as your main source of focus regen. And then outside of Spearhead, you're using Flanking Strike on cooldown and then Kill Command afterwards. It's a very straightforward single target rotation, and it's very, very simple. It's basically 2 buttons during your cooldown, 4 buttons outside of it. It's not very complex. It's not, overall, some people might not call it very interesting. And overall, it's not the most exciting damage pattern. And as you can tell, based off, if you look at logs, Survival Hunter's sitting at the bottom of all the DPS specs. It's not really a powerful one either. Now, obviously, skill is going to be associated with that. How can you maximize movement? Maximize your uptime. Survival always relies on the fact that you need really high uptime in order to maximize the damage profile. Whereas some other specs like Feral Druid, for example, if you have to run away from the boss, it's not great, but at least you have 3 bleeds potentially ticking on a target. So you're still not losing a ton of damage. Whereas Survival, basically, if you have to walk away from your target, you're losing all your damage. So it does require high uptime on a boss. And so something that requires you to target switch a lot or have to run away from the boss a lot, your damage is going to suffer as a result. But the single target is actually extremely simple. It actually kind of feels like it's lacking something. Like Spearhead doesn't feel super impactful as a cooldown, in my opinion. I would love for it to be something that you can add something else to the single target profile to add some flavor to the spec. Because right now it's very, very much like a classic DPS spec where you're basically pressing like 2 or 3 buttons and that's it. And it's not super interesting, but it is what it is right now. The spec just leans that heavily into Mongoose Bite because you can talent to make Mongoose Bite one of the hardest hitting abilities in the game. I've crit Mongoose Bites for like 115, 120k in a raid situation with full consumables and stuff. And as you can see, I'm not even all that well geared. I don't have the greatest weapon and stuff like that. So there's definitely a chance that this spec with uptime can hit really hard, but it's just kind of, for the most part, uninteresting. Now, the Mythic Plus side of things, though, we're going to talk about this a little bit because there are 2 kind of Mythic Plus builds, and the changes come in actually in the class tree, not in the spec tree. So this is what's dubbed. You can't see it behind my camera, but right here is the name of the build. I call this the M Plus Comfy build. So there are 2 different types of Mythic Plus builds. There's a lower ceiling, higher floor type build. That I run here because I just like this build a lot better, and then there is a sort of higher ceiling, lower floor type build that takes advantage of Serpent Sting and Poison Injection. So this build here focuses a lot more on just kind of explosive shot, butchery. I just almost said barv. It's a Braves meme coming in, Atlanta Braves meme coming in there. Sorry, butchery, explosive shot, wildfire bomb, and during coordinated assault, kill shot. So as you can see, we take up more talents that have more effect in Mythic Plus, camouflage now in, rejuvenated wind and pathfinding out so that we can get trank shot and intimidation / high explosive trap. You kind of pick one depending on the niche. Same here, you can pick nature's endurance or lone survivor. I think either one is good. If you need survival of the fittest more often, you go that route. If you need better survival of the fittest, you go that route. It kind of depends on the dungeon and the damage events that you have occurring. So this build basically takes a point in serrated shots to increase your Serpent Sting damage, which you're not really taking here, although you do get it with Viper's Venom, and bleed damage because you get a bleed from Master Marksman and you get a bleed from Bloodseeker. So you have 2 bleeds that your damage is going to be increased on. So it's just like the best increase for the single point that you're getting out of it. Does take advantage of Arctic Bolo, which makes your Mongoose Bite have a pseudo cleave effect. It's not a true cleave because you're not Mongoose Biting multiple targets. Be very cool if you could, but you can't. But when you Mongoose Bite, you do shoot out a Bola that hits up to 4 targets overall. So it does make Mongoose Bite valuable to use in single target situations, but it's still a very low priority versus everything else that you have going on. And then of course, Explosive Shot over Barrage. Explosive Shot has a massive damage boost talent in the Spectre with Ranger, giving Explosive Shot 40% increased damage. It just makes it that much better over Barrage. And Barrage is a ranged weapon only choice anyway, so Survival has no choice but to take Explosive Shot. Now, for the Poison spec, or the Serpent Sting, the Poison Injection Mythic Plus build, you drop the point out of Beastmaster and Serrated Shots and put it into Serpent Sting and or you take it out of Beastmaster and Binding Shackles, also a possibility, so that you can keep your Serpent Sting damage increase, and put it in Serpent Sting and Poison Injection. The biggest difference between this playstyle is that with the Serpent Sting Poison Injection build, you're basically tab targeting a lot. So you're going to be tab targeting, applying Serpent Sting to as many targets as you can so that they build up these poison injection stacks. Then you're still going to be doing Butchery, Wildfire Bomb, but then you're also going to go back in and Mongoose Bite all of those targets when they're at their peak stacks, usually anywhere between 8 and 10, so that you can burst that damage and get a little bit more burst damage. So it's a lot of tab targeting. You're cycling a lot of enemies. It's a lot more effort in terms of what you have to do to maximize the DPS. Unless you just are a hardcore lover of the playstyle, for someone new to the spec, I don't recommend it. But if you're wanting to go ahead and just practice the max DPS potential build in Mythic Plus, that's going to be the one. I personally don't play it. I don't like the playstyle, and I'm doing perfectly fine with timing. I've timed up to, see what's the highest key I've timed on this character. It's only 10s right now because I've been doing this as a alt. But, you know, I see myself being able to time 20s with this build. Now in the spec tree, this build focuses a lot more on Butchery, Carve, and Butchery, Wildfire Bomb, and Fury of the Eagle, taking advantage of that. So some big talents to point out here. Kind of the same side over here, but here we're taking, obviously we take Butchery and Frenzy Strikes, which reduces the cooldown of Wildfire Bomb by an additional second, and then Flanking Strike also by additional second. Flanking Strike, again, is still useful to be focus regeneration. Particularly because you're not really stacking a kill command type situation. And then Coordinated Assault. So Coordinated Assault basically strikes the target and then makes, with the combination of Coordinated Kill, makes Kill Shot usable during the cooldown. So basically, when you use it, Kill Shot becomes active. During Coordinated Assault, Kill Shot hits 3 targets because of this talent here, Birds of Prey. So basically you're investing 4 points to really make Coordinated Assault a very powerful AoE cooldown. So during Coordinated Assault, you're basically kill-shotting on cooldown, and you want to try to Wildfire Bomb as much as humanly possible because you're getting a 20% damage increase here, 25% damage increase here, 50% damage increase here. You kind of see where this is going. You're getting these big stacking damage buffs on the initial hit and overall damage of Wildfire Bomb. And combined with Wildfire Infusion, just creates some really nice synergies and fun gameplay styles. And then Fury of the Eagle is a 45-second kind of Bestial Wrath style cooldown where you're going to get extra damage, 50% crit chance increase on targets below 50%, and and getting cooldown on kill command. So again, Pheromone Bomb, very powerful there. Gets you a reduced cooldown on this. So even though it's 45-second base cooldown, you can get it down to as low as I've had it about 20 to 25 seconds in really ideal circumstances. So you can use this a lot. And of course, you get extra Wildfire Bomb cooldown reduction when you get a critical strike on Fury of the Eagle, which below 50% for me is basically a guaranteed crit. So this playstyle really focuses in on this. Of course, you still take Ranger for the explosive shot damage. Here you're getting Sharp Edges, which increases critical damage, which I am not the biggest fan of. I almost wonder if Sweeping Spear would be better. I'm probably going to sim it for myself and see what happens. And then go from there. Now, one thing you might be asking, hey, do we take Aspect of the Eagle? I haven't found a place where I think Aspect of the Eagle is really all that important. Yes, there are some bosses where you have to run out of like big circles. I'm thinking last boss of Algathar Academy. But the damage bonus on Raptor Strike and Mongoose Bite for that time period, or the extra range, it's 15 seconds, but you're only out of range for like 4 because you can just harpoon back in. So it's not really worth taking in any situation that we have right now. You're not away from a boss for any mega extended period of time unless you're doing a mechanic of some sort. But even then, you just harpoon back in and you're right back into melee range. So Aspect of the Eagle just doesn't really have a place right now. You can take it if you want. You probably are sacrificing... I don't even know where you'd sacrifice the point. Maybe in terms of engagement, because you don't need the reset as much with Aspect of the Eagle, but it's just kind of in an awkward place right now. So what does this look like for a rotation standpoint? So this one is actually really interesting from a standpoint of rotation. So again, no trinkets being involved in this. We're just going to use the base kit that I have, and no heroism, of course. So on pull, once your tank gathers up some mobs, you're going to harpoon, Wildfire Bomb, Death Chakram, Coordinated Assault, Kill Command, and then you basically Butchery to get your bomb back on cooldown, Explosive Shot, Bomb, Kill Command, Carve, bomb, and then you're going to Fury of the Eagle to get it on cooldown. And then you basically just keep a bomb on cooldown. Make sure your butchery is being used. Inside coordinated offensive, you're using kill shot on cooldown. And you're basically just butchery, bomb, explosive shot on cooldown, and Fury of the Eagle on cooldown. That's kind of the rotation. It's, again, fairly straightforward, but much more interesting than the single target rotation. And then you use flanking strike first to do focus regen if it's available, and then kill command after that to be your focus regen. But because you're using things like wildfire bomb more often, Fury of the Eagle, which doesn't cost any focus at all, that's going to allow you to get a little bit of focus regen while those GCDs at the channel time is happening. So ideally you should always have some focus available, and then when you have nothing else to do, that's when you can Mongoose Bite. But generally speaking, you should always have something to do for the most part. So that's kind of the multi-target rotation. So again, if you need help with either rotation, go back, I'll mark the sections. You can go back and watch these sections over and over as you need to. All right, let's talk about stats. Actually, you know what? Let's talk tier bonuses. I have 2 pieces on this character. So here we're getting just basically a 15% bonus to Mongoose Bite and Butchery for Mythic Plus, Mongoose Bite for single target. And then the 4 set is Mongoose Bite and Butchery have a 20% chance to make the next Mongoose Bite or Butchery cost no focus and deal 50% increased damage. I don't think you're really going to have to track it because I don't know if the buff has like a time duration on it. So you're kind of not really paying attention to your set bonuses. You just might notice every now and then that your Mongoose Bites hits harder. Ideally in single target, when you get this proc, you're at a 5 stack of Mongoose Fury with plenty of focus to use one at 5 stacks, and you just get a really big damage spike in that with that. But you just kind of play the rotation as normal and you're not really thinking about the tier bonus. From a stats perspective, let me go back into my Narcissus app here, because I think this better shows the stats here as we look on this bottom right side over here. Haste is still king for the spec, but haste also has, like you can see, I have the most haste, and I'm only at 15% right now. It's basically 170 haste to get 1%. So haste is still king just because it affects your focus regen, it affects your bomb cooldown, it affects your butchery cooldown. I think it affects a couple of other cooldowns as well, and it allows you to potentially get more and lowers your GCD, so you can get more Mongoose Bites in the single target type situation. So haste is still king. You want as much of it as humanly possible. If a piece has haste, like for example my cloak doesn't have haste on it, if I get like a haste verse cloak or a haste master or preferably haste crit cloak, it's going to be an upgrade if it's close in eye level to this one, simply because it has haste. For your second stat, generally speaking, crit is going to be the best one here, just because again you get that synergy with Master Marksman and Serrated Blades with the bleed damage, and you know when you crit you bleed the damage a little bit more. So there's just synergies inside the talent tree with the spec itself. I'm not sure why my screen is shaking, probably because there's so many people doing things right now. Sorry about that. And then Verse and Mastery are going to be kind of equal. Versatility typically going to be slightly better because it does do a damage reduction. But Mastery, like you still, I don't think you're going out of your way to avoid it as much as humanly possible, because there are some cases where Mastery might actually not be that bad because you are spending a ton of focus in the single target build. But you still just kind of not getting out of it. And the thing is like you see Verse is almost 205 points to get 1% Verse or a 0.5% reduction, 170 for 1% haste, 180 for 1% crit, but it's only like 110 mastery to get 1%, which is why you see my, even though I have by far the lowest mastery, I mean it's my lowest stat by 500-ish points, but I still have like the most mastery. It's just the conversion rate is there. All right, for enchants and gems, let's talk about those. So obviously gems can go in your neck and in your rings. Gems, you're going to want to get at least one agility haste gem. I don't have one right now on this character, but I'm probably going to get one for my Diana's Chosen, because I got this out of my heroic weekly quest from last week. Rocked Avoidance and a socket. It's just like the best of luck. Probably a ring I'm going to keep the rest of the patch, even though it doesn't have haste on it. The fire damage proc does proc off a wildfire bomb, so it's just worth having. But right now, and then outside of that, you're probably going to want crafty use emeralds, 70 haste and 33 crit. These are just really strong gems. This one has a verse haste gem on it. I need to fix that. I will be doing that here shortly. And then for enchants, you want the 82 haste. This one I got kind of cheap because I didn't expect to keep this ring for a long time, but I still have it. So I only put a 55 haste on it. So 82 haste if you can get it. 55 haste is the wafting writ, I think. It's like the second best enchant that you can get. On boots, plain runner breeze is just a little extra speed, no big deal. You want the fierce armor kit to go on your legs, because I think that gives you bonus crit and agility. For your weapon, you want Sophic Devotion or Sophic Writ. If you can't get those because they're incredibly expensive, then Wafting Devotion or Wafting Writ are going to be the second best option because that procs haste. Sophic gives you primary stats, that's why it's the best, but haste is also a good option here if you can't afford or don't have an enchanter friend that can give you a Sophic enchant. On bracers, I'm probably going to change this from leech to avoidance. Cloak, also you want the avoidance enchant, just because hunter is such a glass cannon spec that you want as much avoidance as possible, because anything that you can avoid is just going to help you live. Plus, leech isn't necessarily as important when you have a tenacity pet like I do right here. Good old White Wind, my wolf here. If you have a not a tenacity, a ferocity pet, you're getting an kind of built-in leech already. Waking stats on your chest, just to give you more overall stats for that. And then of course, ideally I'm gonna see if I can get a new neck. Once I get a haste crit neck or a haste something neck, I'll probably work on putting the 3 sockets in that so that I can get even more haste crit gems to go inside of that. Other consumables for potions, Corrupting Rage is technically the best one, but there does have a little bit of a downside to it, in that it's kind of constantly ticking damage for you. Tepid Versatility is kind of like a safe one that you can always get. That's always going to be good. You're getting 800 bursts at max stats for it. But the best overall file is going to be Glacial Fury for Mythic Plus. So basically what that does is that whenever you first attack a target, you gain a stack of Glacial Fury. After 5 stacks, you basically shoot out frost damage out to up to 5 enemies. So it's just the best for Mythic Plus. And then Elemental Chaos is the other file option if Corrupting Rage is at your gig. Basically, you get a random elemental boon that increases your secondary stat and another bonus effect every 60 seconds or so. So Elemental Chaos, definitely the best one overall, I think. But Tepid Versatility, a very good safe option if you're progging and want to try to live a little bit more. In terms of combat potions, Ultimate Power, I think that's pretty obviously. It's nearly 900 primary stat. It's just really, really good. Health potions you want to grab. And then now I have Howling Runes right here because I have an inscription list, so it was just free basically to do this, to give you another 265 haste for 2 hours. You can also run the Primal Whetstone to give you an extra amount of attack power. I would honestly sim it and see which one's better for you. As far as the food goes, you want to grab Grand Banquet of the Kalawak if you have that going, where you get the 76 primary stat. Otherwise, you want to use Faded Fortune Cookie or the Feisty Fish Sticks if you don't have any Fortune Cookies. 67 haste, 67 crit, and then the Fortune Cookie also gives you, I think, 76 primary stat as well. So that's kind of the food that you're going to want and the potions that you're going to want. So overall, Survival, I think, is a spec that has a lot of potential, particularly in AoE. I find it quite fun to play. If I take this character into raid, like when my raid team / community does like all normal raids, then I might be running Marksman in raid just because it's a little bit more interesting than Survival. But knowing me, I like playing melee, so I'll probably play it in raid just to see how well I can push the spec and how much I can do with it. But if you're not a fan of like the 2 or 3 button playstyle for raid, honestly, I just play BM or MM because you're going to have a much more interesting rotation on those 2 specs. But I think this spec does have a really interesting rotation in Mythic Plus and has some real nice movement potential with Disengage, Flanking Strike also moving you, because like remember, Flanking Strike, if you are like 15 yards away, leaps you to the target like that. So you do have the ability to be very mobile on the battlefield of Survival. But Again, the spec's not in a great place tuning wise at the moment. It definitely needs some love, and I think the single target build needs some attention. The tree probably needs some attention as well. Hopefully Blizzard starts to recognize that and maybe does something with it as we move closer to 10.0.5 and eventually down the line 10.1. So that's Survival Hunter, guys. If you stuck around to the end of the video, I definitely appreciate you very much. Remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and share this with your friends if they are survival enthusiasts or survival intrigued. Hopefully they gain a lot out of this video overall. So until the next video, I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're all enjoying yourself. You're having fun. You keep on gaming, and I will see you all in the next video.